our GSTU 101 final project. I'm Jon Matulka.
And I'm Kyla Hrdlicka.
Okay, so for our introduction, um, so our lesson is to show how understanding turns into learning. This is vital in being successful at BCHS. Um, our lesson will assist you in finding resources as well. Through our research, we found that learning can be achieved to a high level of understanding by putting in the work and using all of your resources around us. By putting in the work, this could be by like taking notes and really paying attention in class, actually putting your mind and listening to what he's saying or she. Um, so the more methods you use to learn a concept, the better you will to retain it. So this another like a lot of methods you can use is note taking, obviously, but also it can be by watching YouTube videos on it if you still don't get it, um, or even just go ask for help. But there are also many opportunities that Bryan College offers to students to help them achieve higher learning by understanding. So while planning this lesson, we found that our scholarly research supports this topic well, and we will cover that later. Um,
Yeah. So, some of the benefits to students that Bryan Health College offers, the benefit to understanding more is that you will do better in your tests and retain the information longer for comprehensive tests down the line. Bryan College ensures that their students can succeed in their programs by offering many resources outside of classes. Some of these resources include peer mentors, study groups, and your teachers will help you as well. So, with peer mentors, they will assist you with any questions that you have over the concepts that you are currently learning, which will help you to better understand. They can also provide study tips and tricks to help you understand the material in an easier way. They have all taken the classes that you are taking now, so they'll be a great resource to use. Another really important one for Bryan is study groups. A lot of your peers in your classes are going to be going through the same exams as you are, so getting together and getting different point of views is always great. So these can assist you to do better understanding by allowing you to get together with your peers and see the concepts from a different point of view, and also allows you to ask your peers questions on concepts that they might know better.
yeah. So for library access, it'll be another great resource because you can go in person or online. Bryan has a great library online that has many scholarly research articles, even the ones that we use in this presentation to help us. Um, but it can also help you find books on concepts that you're shaking on. So, like, say, in anatomy, we're learning the skeletal system right now. So, I know there are many books in the library that can help me further my understanding of the skeletal system because they'll have different wordings to describe like what the bone does, and it also can just have like a different picture of where the bone's located, so that'll also help me. Another thing we have are teachers. I mean, obviously we have, but another thing about Bryan is our professors are very sociable, and there's a lot less students in the class, so you can be more social with them. And it's also one of the easiest ways to help you understand stuff because they're teaching the class, so they obviously have a pretty good understanding of what you need to know about that topic that you're like pretty unsure on. But this can be done in class, or you can set up an appointment and talk with them. I know many people that do set appointments. It can either be online or in person, so it's pretty handy to do, pretty easy to access. Um, they'll help you fully understand concepts that you didn't understand in class, so it's just a good thing to keep questions like in your head in class. That way you can ask them later. They can also provide you with some tips on what to learn in your next exam. So all these resources can allow students to learn better by understanding. Students who are just getting through their classes without fully understanding the material are not going to learn as much as a student who does, which is pretty obvious, but obviously the students who do put in work will do better on exams.
So, for our research, for our lessons and topics for this, we use the library that you can find in Canvas through Bryan Health College. So, for our first article that we found Recipe for Success, teaching students metacognitive and self-regulatory learning strategies. And in this article, we had found a quote that states, "The understanding and application of learning strategies and skills are influenced by the dynamic interaction among personal, behavioral, and environmental factors of human development, described in social cognitive theory." Social cognitive theory describes the influence of individual experiences, the actions of others, and environmental factors on individual health behaviors. This quote shows that if you want to understand a concept better, you must use learning strategies that are customized to you. This means that you know your mind and your environment in life, and you must use the learning strategies that best suit you. This relates to Brian by all of the resources we listed on the last slide so that you can choose from and try in order to see which one of them best help you learn. An example of this could be if your roommate visits with a peer mentor every week and you had tried going to a peer mentor, but you just decided that you think you learn better by yourself, watching YouTube videos, going over your notes. That is a way to figure out how you like to learn. So that would be a really good example of using metacognitive learning and really seeing where you're at in a class and what you need to do to stay up in that class. This article also talks about how metacognition is obtained by being able to test yourself on what you fully understand and don't fully understand. This can be done by using flashcards over terms, rereading your notes from lecture, and seeing what you understand from it, or by going to a study group. Another way to test this is for most of our classes, the instructors will put up practice exams or practice tests that you can find in your modules, and going over those every once in a while to see if you've come any further on your learning is a really great idea to help out with this.
So, in our next scholarly article, we found it's called Motivation and Learning Strategies. Student motivation affects student learning strategies. It discusses about how one's will and actually putting in the time to learn will affect which learning strategies they will choose, if any at all. So, that's just saying like how willing you are to learn is how much you will learn. So a quote from the article states, ... defines SRL as a learning process where learners actively and constructively determine learning objectives for the purpose of monitoring, regulating, and controlling motivation, cognitive, and behavior. So this is basically saying that if you are actively being motivated in your learning by setting learning objectives, it will help you learn your metacognition and overall understanding. So an example of this could be in your anatomy class lecture. You can see beforehand like the PowerPoints, so you can go and look what you're going to be going over in class and maybe set aside some objectives about what you'll be going over and like what you want to really anchor down in your mind during the lecture. So this will just better set you guidelines and better prepare you for what he's going to talk about in class, and you kind of already have an idea in your head to understand the material.
Another good thing about our classes is that most of the time in our lectures, especially in anatomy and physiology, the professor is normally really good about letting you know where we're leaving off and where we're going to pick up at for next lecture. So if you do understand what you're learning, you can always jump ahead a few bullet points and kind of jot down the first few notes and set aside any questions you may have or any other things you are unsure of, just to make sure that you can get that covered in your next lecture to help you fully understand.
Another really nice thing is the textbook you get in a lot of your classes will relate right with your PowerPoints. So you can like kind of compare and contrast what's different on your PowerPoint and what's different on the textbook, and that just gives you another resource to help you learn better. So now we'll get to our lesson for the class. So today our lesson is going to demonstrate how a motivated student studies for an exam beforehand and the steps they took to do it. So hopefully our lesson gives you some tips on what you can do to apply yourself more when you're studying.
So a good motivated student would first attend every lecture class and actively take notes and listen while in them. So it's one thing to attend every lecture, but it's also another thing to be present in the lecture and make sure that you are taking notes on things that you don't fully understand, and make sure that you're jotting down notes that make sense to you so that when you go back and look at them, you can have something useful for your studying and not just random words that you don't know where they came from. They will also be studying little bits of material daily to fully retain the information that will be on the exam. This will allow the student to kind of keep everything in check, because trying to learn up to 4 chapters the week before an exam is not fun. So if you can just stay up on it as you're getting the new material, it'll make it a lot easier before all of your exams. The next thing is the student knows the numerous resources he has available to him and already knows which of those resources help him best. So that kind of goes back to the metacognition of finding out which ways you like to learn, which ways you think that you can fit in best to get the material in your head. These resources are their peer mentor and the study group that he has. He meets with his peer mentor weekly with a written list of questions together so he can get the most out of his time. Showing up to a peer mentor unprepared would leave him with nothing new learned, so it's really good to go in there knowing what you need to learn and having goals and objectives of what you want to leave there knowing. This student also set objectives study sessions that he wanted to have accomplished and wouldn't stop studying until he completed them and had a good understanding of them all. And a lot of the times these objectives would come pretty easy to you because the instructors have done a pretty good job of letting you know at least what chapters are going to be on the exam and what are like the highlighted things you really need to look over beforehand and really make sure that you understand. So here are some more examples the student could use to be an even more effective learner.
So he can first make flashcards on the big concepts and smaller terms. It's always good to make cards not only on the smaller terms but also on the big concepts, because if you don't, you're just going to be clueless on what the smaller terms relate to, like overall. Memorizing just random terms really doesn't help you. You kind of have to have the big picture idea for a lot of classes. Another thing that they can do is keep a planner and make sure to set aside time to study each day. So they kind of said that, how they're going to study every day, but it's always good to like actually write it down and make sure you set aside time, because if you don't, you could actually just kind of forget about it and not do it at all. Another thing is to go to the library and get more resources on a topic. We stated that earlier in our benefits to students that Brian has. So, I mean, there's even like after all these numerous resources we listed, there's even more at the library.
And not only are there books and things like that at the library, but I know for anatomy and physiology as well, there are even like the school models that we use for that, and things like that too, to kind of help you study if you're more of a hands-on learner. So they really have a ton of different options for you. It's not just you go in there and find a book. There's plenty of resources in there for you to use.
Yes. And then lastly, like we stated before, if you don't like going to a peer mentor or something, you can just look up YouTube videos of the topic, and I'm sure there'll be many, it's the internet, on that topic, and it'll explain it to you in a different way.
And some of the times in the modules as well, the instructor will include some like Khan Academy videos, or I know like in our lab modules, he always has the learning objectives in the very first one. So you know what you need to know by the end of it. And a lot of the times that will have some videos in it in case you do want to go back and look at those when you're halfway through or even when you're finished, just to make sure that you have a full understanding of what's going on.
Yep. So that really is our lesson today. I hope some of these ways to study will help you. Maybe you can use them yourself in learning. I know I do, and it sure helped me out a lot. And then finally, on our last slide, we'll have our references. There they are. And that really wraps up our lesson today. Thank you very much.